You're listening to Sirens, a true crime podcast, brought to you by the Sirens Network. This podcast contains explicit content, so listener discretion is advised. The opinions expressed on this podcast are solely the views of the hosts and do not reflect the views of affiliates, associates, or sponsors of this podcast. This is Sirens, a true crime podcast.
April 2002. Rachel Woodall is 21. She's going to East Central. She's working at NAFES. She's just living her life, trying to get through college, working, trying to better herself. She's been in and out of a relationship with a man named Tyler J. Mullins. They apparently did not have the greatest relationship. They had dated off and on. In April, Rachel was reported missing by her mother, and she had reported her on the same day that she disappeared. That evening, Mr. Mullins calls the police from a local hospital where he's being treated for wounds. Mullins told police that he had been jumped and beaten by two men, that he ran away to a location until he could get free of them or lose them or whatever, and that's why he didn't call 911.
What grown man goes to the hospital with just scratches and then calls the cops?
He had scratches on his face, neck, chest, shoulders, and his right hand was bruised and swollen. Apparently, police were immediately suspicious.
How is anybody in the frickin' world would be suspicious? I would like to think. You'd have to be so obtuse.
After speaking with a witness who saw Mullins around Rachel Woodall's house the morning she disappeared, Ada police detectives interviewed Mullins about the crime, but he asked for an attorney, and so they couldn't interview him. Investigators located blood in the trunk of his vehicle, a pair of Rachel's jeans, and her blood-stained shoes in Mullins' home. Apparently, they had broke up earlier in the month and was almost immediately number one suspect.
You think?
What's the chances that she's going to go missing? She was reported missing by her mom that evening, and then all of a sudden her ex-boyfriend is in the ER and he's beat to crap.
He's not even beat to crap. It basically looks like he ran through a freaking rose bush.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you need to call the police over that. You're clearly you should have just stayed at home and ordered a pizza. So, you would have a witness and proof of where you were.
And you are right. Yeah, you're right on that, because if he were beat to crap, if these two men had jumped him and beat him up like he said that they did, he would be in way worse shape.
Yeah, two men on one, first of all.
Yeah, so I believe that they tried to interview him on a Saturday. He lawyered up. He spoke to his lawyer. The next day, he came back in and confessed to the murder of Rachel Woodall. He was just like, let's just jump in the car. I just want to take you somewhere. They get in the vehicle. He drives them out to a place in Sissaquah, which is, how far would you say Sissaquah is from Ada?
15 minutes.
12-ish miles. But yeah, drove them out to this remote area and pointed them to a location that they started digging in and found her body.
Real quick, I was talking to a detective the other day who said that, because what I read, I was running him through it and I was like, is this correct? Is that correct? And it says, some of these reports say sand pit. It was not a sand pit. It was the frickin' river. It was up there by River Mist on the right-hand side of the highway, that bridge.
Oh my gosh.
But I do know that some of the things that the things that you and I have read just back and forth, different news articles, sometimes they'll report that someone died on the wrong frickin' day. So I'm going to go off what this detective said.
I think I only saw mention of the sand pit once. I didn't even include it because it wasn't consistent.
Exactly. Well, that's what he said. Up there by River Mist on the right-hand side of the highway.
Jeez. They found Rachel's battered and bloody body, buried and wrapped in a blue tarp. There was evidence of a fatal head wound. According to Chris Ross,
the DA,
evidence showed Mullins got her to leave her home and took her to a rural area somewhere in Pontotoc County where he severely beat her. This included striking her in the head with a metal tire rim. Then he left her unconscious and left. He went back home where he got a gun and a tarp, went back to Rachel's body, put her in a tarp, drove her to Seminole County, wrapped her in the tarp, put her in a hole, and then shot at the tarp 4 times. When he did that, he actually struck her 3 times in the head. Then he covered her in dirt and put rocks over her. It was determined later by the medical examiner that she had actually died from those gunshots to the head. So she was still alive that whole time until the gunshots. She had been severely beaten before then, resulting in skull fractures above her eye. She had numerous bruises, abrasions, cuts to her face, head, lip, chin, neck, chest, arms, hands, thighs. I'm mad just talking about this, honestly.
They both worked at Nafe's Steakhouse and they were at work that night. I inquired, the reason I was talking to the detective, because this rural area he allegedly took her to, I think was out by Latta. So he took her out, they were out by Latta, and then he beat her senseless. And I guess he just thought, okay, well, that's it. We're done here. I'm going to have to finish her off. And he leaves. And it says he goes back to his house and gets a tarp and the gun. And so I was asking, I was like, where was she when this happened? Where did this happen? Where did he live? You can see where I'm going with my train of thought. And I think he said that he lived with like his sister or something, or he went to his sister's house. And that didn't make sense to me because I was like, so he goes to his sister's house and takes her gun, or who was this gun registered to? There's still a lot of questions I have, but the end result is he admitted to it. He took him to the body. In 2014, this son of a bitch appeared before Judge Landreth and asked him to grant relief because Mullins feels he is, get this word, first of all, entitled. You're not entitled to anything except a really rough time in prison, if you know what I'm saying. He's entitled to appeal out of time to withdraw his guilty plea and present his case to a jury for resolution. What they believe is he pled in 2003 to beating and shooting her. He was sentenced to life without parole. He pled guilty without a plea agreement because his counsel at the time should have insisted on going to trial.
Right.
TJ Mullins claims they were in a heat of passion.
Right.
Like a violent confrontation, manslaughter situation, not first-degree murder. I'm sorry. Heat of passion? Heat of passion includes you beating a female senseless. And I don't know if you've ever seen her. I remember her. I knew her. She was tiny. She was not a threat at all whatsoever. Like, I'm not even excusing this. This isn't even cool. But I have seen many a fist fight at the old village, and heat of the moment thing, you're throwing hands for a little bit and then you're done. You're bloody, you're calming down, your adrenaline's wearing off, whatever. And so you beat her to this point, you hit her with an object in the head, and then you leave and go get a weapon and a tarp, come back, load her up, take her to the river and bury her in, I guess, a shallow grave or just some hole he found. No, you are absolutely off your frickin' rocker if you think anyone's going to believe that.
I would say the second that he left her there and was like, I need to go get a gun and finish the job. Murder. It's just straight murder now. It's premeditated now. At that point, you could have been, okay, maybe she dies from this stuff. You get into an argument, maybe she dies. That's manslaughter, okay? But not when you leave her there and you go to get a tarp and a gun. No, you could have called the police at any time. You could have called 911 at any time to get her help, to at least try to get her to the hospital. No, absolutely not.
So TJ missed a 10-day deadline to file a motion to withdraw his plea. He said even though he missed that deadline, his arguments were without merit, meaning he wouldn't have been successful anyway. It's like, no.
An application for relief is what it was. What was this? 10 years later?
14 years later. After they've had plenty of time on the inside to just sit there and study the law and their books and hear other people's stories. And, oh, you're so freaking enlightened now, huh? Still a murderer. Think you should sit this one out.
When he came back, the district attorney was Chris Ross, and argued that the application should be denied because he missed the 10-day deadline to file the motion to withdraw his plea back when it first happened. And during that hearing, the initial hearing, he filed this before 2014. He filed this like, I want to say several months after he put in his plea initially. And at the time, Judge Landreth, he didn't allow a hearing because he found that not only did Mullins miss the deadline, but he also, Mullins attempting to withdraw his plea in 10 days, he wouldn't have been successful anyway. The deck was pretty much stacked against him at that time. Why would you come back and try again for the exact same thing you tried to do months after this happened, 14 years later? You know you're going to get told no, dude. You confessed to it already.
Mm-hmm.
There's blood on your car. There's blood in your trunk.
Her roommates told police they saw her Friday night, but she was missing from her room the next day. The neighbor told police they saw TJ pull up in her driveway early Saturday, and he tried to open the door, but it was locked, so he ransacked her car for about 10 minutes, and they reported hearing a woman scream. Fun fact, they did not call the cops. If you are one of these people, if you're scared to go out there, he might have a gun. He might have a knife. He might be a crazy person. Cool, I get that. Make some noise. Throw a rock. I don't care. At least, for the love of God, call 911.
Absolutely.
They can't help if they don't know what they're there to, like, if they don't know that they need to be there helping. At least, at the end of the day, there is a paper trail following this piece of shit. Because these policemen have reports. We asked a friend about, apparently, I don't know if we've been living under a rock or if there was some law change. We thought you had to be missing for like 24 hours before you could be considered a missing person.
Oh, yeah.
We were redirected, and we didn't mention this. We meant to during the Caitlin Wooten thing. There was an influx of information. We had a lot to tell you in a short period of time. The minute you report someone missing, it goes in the database. So you have like Amber Alerts, Silver Alerts, Missing Persons Report, what have you. It's not a 24-hour thing.
So report it immediately is what we're saying to you.
Yeah, if there's a person who's supposed to be there and they're not there, check it. How long ago is this? 2002? Not everyone was running around with a cell phone at that time. But if she has this boyfriend and they're off and on for 2 years, you should probably be checking in with your friends and be like, listen, things are crazy. We're not together. Because in all honesty, I have those friends and I call them repeat offenders.
Yeah.
Because they just keep getting back with this toxic freaking person. And the same thing keeps happening, but it gets a little worse each time. And it's like, hello, Dip Dot. You should probably stop this pattern before things get out of control. But how would they know if my roommate was back with this dude again for the 90th time again? I'd probably be like, you know what? They worked together last night. She probably went and stayed at his house, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I know that a lot of stuff that we talk about is pretty much very past tense. However, the point of this podcast is for us to learn from it and do better. We are living in a technology-filled day and age where we want you to know that you should be doing these things. Call your friends, check on them, text them, and report things. Just report it.
About this whole doing something, I'm not going to drop any names. I'm just going to tell a story about prison ministry. Someone went into the prison where TJ is being held, and they were doing, prison ministry with another inmate. And I guess the inmate either caught wind that this guy was from Ada, something like that. And he said, do you know TJ Mullins? And the guy's like, yes, I'm familiar with who he is. And he says, he's such a nice guy. I wonder what she did to make him kill her.
Oh, come on. Come on.
This is along the same lines of wanting to know what a girl was wearing whenever it turns out that she got raped. Let's talk about that for just a second.
What the?
I mean to tell you, nobody made him murder her. You fucking killed her.
Yeah.
She was she was 21 years old. Do you know she was going to school to be in the medical field?
No, I didn't know that.
Yes. She was like freaking going to school and working part-time at a hospital or something like.
Yes, I did know she worked part-time at the hospital. I did know that. Yes.
She's waiting tables. She's in college. She was a beautiful girl and she's trying to do something. And here you are with this guy who probably only has 3 outfits.
Right? Oh my gosh.
What did she do to make him kill her? Give me a break.
Don't make excuses for murderers and rapists. Murder is murder, rape is rape. Period.
This person, she had nothing. She's trying to scratch you and claw at you to defend herself. You're being a raging fucking psychopath.
Absolutely.
I don't feel like it should never have escalated to the point to hit her with a tire rim. Where the hell did you get that anyways?
He put her in his trunk eventually. I'm just going to guess that that was in his trunk. I don't know. Still, if you're fighting with her, you have to think about like, oh, let me go get that out of the trunk real quick.
I feel like there's a point in life where it's a no turning back point. And it's many, many things, like many cases. I'm not talking about just murder, but it's like there's no turning back. So it's like he's beaten her to this point, and he's like, I have no choice. In his mind, because his mind is warped and fucked up, he's already beating a little female. Maybe he's thinking, there's no turning back now. Maybe she was already like mostly unconscious at this point, and then he goes back and gets the rim and then tries to do it that way, but she's still breathing.
Oh my God.
Then he's like, I'm going to go back and I'll get the gun and this is how I'll finish it. The audacity to try and show back up and say, I need a trial. Like, I just love that all these people are paying for you to be in prison and get fed and a nice place to sleep and a TV to watch. And good, is lethal injection really that expensive?
What do you think is going to happen if you get a trial? Everybody knows what you did. Everybody knows. They're not going to be able to find a juror 1 to put in that jury stand because we already know what you did.
What does he want out of this? So imagine the day he gets out of prison. I know her family, and I'm here to tell you, him being in prison is the safest place for him. Yeah, he got life without a chance of parole.
He got life without parole. Good.
Here's a summary from Wikipedia. Capital punishment is a legal penalty in the U.S. state of Oklahoma. It also has the highest number of executions per capita in the country. Oklahoma was the first jurisdiction in the world to adopt lethal injection as method of execution.
Dope.
What I'm thinking with Mullins is that he's had so much freaking time to himself or away from the general public. I think that he sees other people around him who have done plenty of terrible, horrible things. It's just, what's the word? Dislocated from it? I don't know how to word that, but he's just, you're not in reality anymore, bud. Anyway, tell us about lethal injection, Raven.
A sedative is used, midazolam to sedate, vicronium bromide to paralyze the muscles, and then potassium chloride to stop the heart. Those are the 3. All IV injected.
Right? Should we start a petition or no? We'll talk about that off the air.
We want to talk to you about a website for just a minute, brought to you by End Violence Against Women International, America's leading nonprofit organization dedicated to improving criminal justice responses to sexual assault.
So, startbybelieving.org, it's a sexual assault thing. Men are raped too. We know that. The whole point of this website is to promote not being so quick to judge the stories of these people. We all realize that allegations come up against certain people. It happens everywhere. It happens, especially in this climate right now. It's so sad that it takes 20 women getting taken advantage of. One of them finally risked everything. Like, you risk your family, your career, no telling what all. You're no longer reputable if anybody doesn't believe you. And you just have to hope and pray that someone else comes forward and says, yeah, me too. When we're dealing with someone who's finally accused of rape, that is hardly ever their first victim. Hardly ever. You might want to go ahead and speak up, just to save all the women or children, what have you, that follow you, that are going to be after you for not saying anything. You shed some light on this person and what they're doing. Maybe someone else will be forewarned before they're around this person in private, because the worst has already happened to you. Someone has taken your sense of security. They have taken your sense of pride in yourself. They have made you they've made you think that this was your fault. Let's talk about this. Let's report this. Let's stand up and fight. In our judicial system, ideally, you are innocent until proven guilty. We have to be able, without a doubt, to prove that you're guilty of this. So we get where the attorneys are coming from. Like, by believing the victim first, you're damning the accused already.
Which is not true at all, because we're not saying to skip a accused's due process. What we're saying is give the victim the benefit of the doubt to just listen and investigate it appropriately.
The victim shaming. Oh my God.
Investigate it the way it should be investigated. Let's go through all the steps like you would with any other crime.
It's hard enough for this woman to get undressed. It's hard enough for this woman to go out in public. It's hard enough for this woman to have to sit in the same frickin' room with this man and tell her truth to a whole bunch of people who don't know her from Adam. This is all hard enough. She's doing it for the greater good. If this can be stopped, if he is not going to be able to offend and do this again and ruin a life again, just listen.
Yeah, just listen. We want to bring up the neighbors again, just for the simple fact that if you see something going on, freaking say something. We wanted to tell you this because you don't even have to do it. You don't have to give them your name. You can do this anonymously. There's a thing in Oklahoma, at least, called Crime Stoppers. I think we just established this is a nationwide thing, though, as well. You can just Google Crime Stoppers and your city, and there will most likely be a tip line that you can either call and anonymously report a crime, or I believe some of them you can submit anonymous form online. If you see something happening, do it. You might save a life. Put simply, it's a 3-part approach to solving a crime problem. This is Oklahoma Crime Stoppers. Crime Stoppers relies on cooperation between police, the media, and the general community to provide a flow of information about crime and criminals. Calls are received at the local Crime Stoppers tips phone. The phone is a standalone instrument which does not provide caller ID, and conversations are not recorded. The Crime Stoppers police or civilian coordinator receiving the information completes the tips information form, makes initial inquiries, and then passes the information on to investigating officers. Calls are accepted regarding any publicized request for information, such as crime of the week or such other crimes the caller has knowledge of. By guaranteeing a caller's anonymity, Crime Stoppers allow the caller to give information in a positive atmosphere without the prospect of retribution. By offering cash rewards, information leading to indictments or arrests, the program encourages otherwise reluctant callers to provide information. Tippers now have the option of giving tips online. The process is completely secure and anonymous, and it's a very effective and efficient means of safely communicating in today's world. Our web tip process is powered by the world's leading online tip solution provider, Anderson Software. It's a very unique integrated two-way dialogue capabilities allow the tipster to come back and provide additional information to their tip at any time, and also provides a secure means for the coordinator to ask questions and provide reward information back to the tipster through the same secure encrypted interface. So just search whatever search engine you use, put in Crime Stoppers, put in your city, and it will direct you to the nearest one to you, and you can report a crime anonymously.
We want to leave you with get out. Get out. Go somewhere. Find someplace safe. Phone a friend. Find a women's shelter. Get out. These people do not get any better. The more they get away with, the worse it gets. Nothing changes. You will become a statistic. If you see something sketchy happening, intervene in whatever way you can.
Most sexual assaults aren't reported. As few as 1 in 5 victims report their sexual assaults, so they often don't get the help they need. Without a report, law enforcement misses the chance to identify perpetrators in their community. Repeat offenders go undetected, and more people get victimized. Go to startbybelieving.org to find sources of support for you or a loved one.
You've reached the end of our episode. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Catch more next time on the Sirens Podcast.